Thank you for joining us for this Shabbat Table Talk. We now join the discussion in progress. All right, Shabbat Shalom, and now we're studying the Parsha for the week, which is called Emor. And it's taken from Leviticus 21st chapter, 1st verse, to the 24th chapter, 23rd verse. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Emor el ha-kohanim, Bnei Aharon, ve'amarta elehem, lenefesh lo yetama be'imav. The Lord said to Moses, speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, none shall defile himself for any dead person among his kin.
Psalm 39. I said, I will guard my way, lest I sin with my tongue. I will restrain my mouth with a muzzle, while the wicked are before me. I was mute with silence. I held my peace even from good, and my sorrow was stirred up. My heart was hot within me, while I was musing. The fire burned. Then I spoke with my tongue. Lord, make me to know my end, and what is the measure of my days, that I may know how frail I am. Indeed, you have made my days as hand's breadth, and my age is as nothing before you. Certainly, every man at his best state is but vapor. Surely every man walks about like his shadow. Surely they visit themselves in vain. He heaps up riches and does not know who will gather them. And now, Lord, what do I wait for? My hope is in you. Deliver me from all my transgressions. Do not make me the reproach of the foolish. I was mute. I did not open my mouth, because it was you who did it. Remove your plague from me. I am consumed by the blow of your hand. When with rebukes you correct man for iniquity, for iniquity, you make his beauty You make his beauty melt away like a moth. Surely every man is vapor. Hear my prayer, O Lord, and give ear to my cry. Do not be silent at my tears, for I am a stranger with you, a sojourner, as all my fathers were. Remove your gaze from me, that I may regain strength before I go away and am no more. This is the word of the Lord. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. May your kingdom come. May your will be done. We give thanks to you, Lord, for your grace and mercy that still proceeds to us, for you have remembered your creation, the work of your hand. You have remembered us for all of our days, Lord, and all the days of our fathers, and you have delivered us as well. As you have delivered your children out of Egypt, out of its bondage, and brought them into a free land, and freed them from labor, from slavery. And we celebrate with them, Lord, for we have been redeemed from the penalty of sin, and we acknowledge that freedom that was delivered to us through Christ, through your will, and through the Spirit that remains to encourage us. We are free, and we celebrate that freedom by doing the things that free men do. We rest from labor. We celebrate a God who delivers and who is mighty. We acknowledge his goodness and our need for him. We welcome you, Lord, on this Shabbat to be with us as you have welcomed us to be with you. And we give thanks for such a union and for your choice. For we, Lord, were weak and did not know our way. We give thanks to the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. And it is in your names we pray. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Amotse lechem means ours. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us bread from the earth. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Berei pri hagafen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
I will give you a better kiss, but somebody needs to shake.
Yeah. Didn't time it right.
Somebody needs to shake. Very interesting, I think. I think all of them are interesting. I think I say that every week, but the last part is particularly interesting. And in my Torah, the Parsha is divided into 3 parts. The first part is called the laws concerning the priest, and that's covered from Leviticus 21, verse 1 to 22:11. And then the second part is called the festival calendar. The festival calendar from Leviticus 20. Laws concerning the priests 21 to 22, verse 11. Right, I'm sorry. And then the festival calendar, verse 20, chapter 23, verse 1 through 44. And that's it. It's 2 parts. I said it was 3. Excuse me. And it could 22 to 23 to 144. No, and there's a 4th part, which I didn't. Oh, hold on a minute.
Chapter 24.
Yes, 24. And I made a mistake on here and didn't write it. Yes, chapter 24. And I didn't write it. It's a short one. And it's called Oil, Bread, and the Blasphemer. And I didn't write anything on that, I think, but that's probably one of the most interesting ones, and we're going to talk about that and everything. But let's start from, let's do the first part. And then, I tell you what, let me do the first part, and then I'll do the second part. And then we'll come back, because I think the first part, we may not have that much to glean from that. But so we'll combine the first and the second, laws concerning the priest, and then the festival calendar. And I think we'll combine that, and then I'll read that. So just take your time and I'll read through that. So we're starting at Leviticus 21:1. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the priests The sons of Aaron, and say to them, none shall defile himself for any dead person among his kin, except for the relatives. No, I'm sorry, except for the relatives that are closest to him, his mother, his father, his son, his daughter, and his brother. Also for a virgin sister close to him, because she has not married. For her he may defile himself. But he shall not defile himself as a kinsman by marriage, and so profane himself. They shall not shave, smooth any part of their heads, or cut the side growth of their beards, or make gashes in their skin, in their flesh. They shall be holy to their God, and not profane the name of their God. For they offer the Lord's offering by fire, and the food of their God, so must be holy. They shall not marry a woman degraded by harlotry, nor shall they marry one divorced from her husband, for they are holy to their God. And you must treat them as holy, since they offer the food of your God, and they shall be holy to you. For I, the Lord, who sanctify you, am holy. When the daughter of a priest degrades herself through harlotry, it is her father whom she degrades. She shall be put to the fire. The priest who is exalted above his fellows, on whose head the anointing oil has been poured, and who has been ordained to wear the vestments, shall not bare his head or rend his vestments. He shall not go in where there is any dead body. He shall not defile himself even for his father or mother. He shall not go outside the sanctuary and profane the sanctuary of his God, for upon him is the distinction of the anointing oil of his God. Mine the oil of his God, mine the Lord's. He may marry only a woman who is a virgin, a widow or a divorced woman, or one who is degraded by harlotry. Such he may not marry. Only a virgin of his own kin may he take to wife, that he may not profane his offspring among his kin, for I, the Lord, have sanctified him. The Lord spoke further to Moses, speak to Aaron, and say, no man of your offspring throughout the ages who has a defect shall be qualified to offer the food of his God. No one at all who has a defect shall be qualified. No man who is blind or lame, or has a limb too short or too long. No man who has a broken leg or a broken arm, or who is a hunchback or a dwarf, or who has growth in his eye, or who has a boil, scar, or scurvy, or crushed testes. No man among the offspring of Aaron the priest who has a defect shall be qualified to offer the Lord's offering by fire. Having a defect, he shall not be qualified to offer the food of his God. He may eat of the food of his God, of the most holy as well as the holy, but he shall not enter behind the curtain or come near the altar, for he has a defect. He should not profane these places sacred to me, for I, the Lord, have sanctified them. Thus Moses spoke to Aaron and his sons, and to all the Israelites. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, instruct Aaron and his sons to be scrupulous about the sacred donations that the Israelite people consecrate to me, lest they profane my holy name, mine the Lord's. Say to them throughout the ages, if any man among your offspring, while in a state of uncleanness, partakes of any sacred donation that the Israelite people may consecrate to the Lord, that person shall be cut off from before me. I am the Lord. No man of Aaron's offspring who has an eruption or a discharge shall eat of the sacred donations until he is clean. If one touches anything made unclean by a corpse, or if a man has an emission of semen, or if a man touches any swarming thing by which he is made unclean, or any human being by whom he is made unclean, whatever his uncleanness, the person who touches such shall be unclean until evening, and shall not eat of the sacred donations unless he has washed his body in water. As soon as the sun sets, he shall be clean, and after it he may eat of the sacred donations, for they are his food. He shall not eat anything that died or was torn by beasts, therefore becoming unclean. I am the Lord. They shall keep my charge, lest they incur guilt thereby, and die for it, having committed profanation. I, the Lord, consecrate them. No lay person shall eat of the sacred donations. No bound or hired laborer of a priest shall eat of the sacred donations. But a person who is a priest's property by purchase may eat of them, and those that are born into his household may eat of his food. If a priest's daughter marries a layman, she shall not eat of the sacred gifts. But if the priest's daughter is widowed or divorced or without offspring, and is back in her father's house as in her youth, she may eat of her father's food. No layperson may eat of it. But if a man eats of a sacred donation unwittingly, he shall pay the priest for the sacred donation, adding 1/5 of its value. But the priests must not allow the Israelites to profane the sacred donation which they set aside for the Lord, or to incur guilt requiring a penalty payment by eating such a sacred donation, for it is I, the Lord, who makes them sacred. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, and to all the Israelite people, and say to them, When any of the house of Israel, or the strangers in the land, in Israel's presents a burnt offering, as his offering for any of the votive or any of the freewill offerings that they offer to the Lord, it must be acceptable in your favor, be a male without blemish, from cattle or sheep or goats. You shall not offer any but any that has a defect, for it will not be accepted in your favor. And when a man offers from the herd or the flock a sacrifice of well-being to the Lord, for an explicit vow or a freewill offering, it must, to be acceptable, be without blemish. There must be no defect in it. Anything blind or injured or maimed, or with a wen, boil, scar, or scurvy, such you shall not offer to the Lord. You shall not put any of them on the altar as offerings to fire to the Lord. You may, however, present as a freewill offering an ox or a sheep with a limb extended or contracted, but it will not be accepted for a vow. You shall not offer to the Lord anything with its testes bruised or crushed or torn or cut. You shall have no such practices in your own land, nor shall you accept such animals from foreigners for offering of food for your God, for they are mutilated. They have a defect. They shall not be accepted in your favor. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, When an ox or a sheep or a goat is born, it shall stay 7 days with its mother, and from the 8th day on it shall be acceptable as an offering by fire to the Lord. However, no animal from the herd or from the flock shall be slaughtered on the same day with its young. When you sacrifice a thanksgiving offering to the Lord, sacrifice it so that it may be acceptable in your favor. It shall be eaten in the same day, and you shall not leave any of it until morning. I am the Lord. You shall faithfully observe my commandments. I am the Lord. You shall not profane my holy name, that I may be sanctified in the midst of the Israelite people. I, the Lord, who sanctify you. I, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I, the Lord. I'm going to change my mind. We'll split it up. We'll stop right here and discuss this part, and then we'll take a break, and then I'll read the next part. But as its title is in this section, it says laws concerning the priest, and they well, John, I'll let you start if you want. Unless you were, I could start. I don't know why I thought you were getting ready to say something.
No, I was running a little.
Okay.
But as you said, these were at least 21 laws referring to the priest, or what high priest did. Now, I guess there was the priest, and then there's the priests themselves, but not the high priest per se, but these were the laws or the requirements that the restrictions put on the priests themselves, not necessarily the high priest. Because the priests were not like they're not like the common people. The common people had certain restrictions put on them, but not, they're different from the ones that were on the priests. I think one that stood out, and I think people use this one today, is that, well, the most common one is that you shouldn't get tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't read the verse right now, but this referred to the priest, but the tattoo had to do with some type of mourning ceremony or death ceremony, I think.
I think I don't, yeah.
So it's not quite the same. But what was going on here, the cutting of the beard and the tattoos or cutting yourself, these were pagan practices.
Right.
And what God is saying, and He doesn't want any practice to be associated with any of the pagan practices. He wants to make them different. I think even the Shabbat ceremony was completely different than any other group. One commentator said it was probably something that was started by the Israelites. It was no other pagan custom practiced that. Here, it's set up as a note that notating their freedom from bondage and out of Egypt, not necessarily the creation Sabbath. What does that put here? No, I'm sticking in 21.
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay, I think that was in 22. But here I think in 21, maybe I'll just read it if I can get it. He shall not defile himself, being a chief among all his people. They shall not make any bald spots on their head, nor shall they shave the edges of their beard, nor make any cutting in their flesh. Some versions will add a little more to that than this one. But this has to do with some of the pagan practices that were going on. So, and they were not to practice those as well. When it speaks of the harlot, the part of pagan practices were for temple harlots, temple prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of a prohibition against temple prostitutes. Here. And it also gave some guidelines on who they were to marry and not marry. But I don't have much of anything other than that. There's still we mentioned it once before about people having defects occupying sacred space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the idea of completeness and holiness. A thought occurred to me while I was reading this, while I was studying it. For God to allow a person, let's say with one leg, or maybe one arm, to be involved in sacred space and to work in the temple, you would probably get the idea also if the person is in heaven, well, maybe they'll be there with one hand or one leg as well, that you wouldn't be a whole person in heaven. So my thinking is this is the picture of wholeness, not only on earth, but wholeness in heaven as well.
Mm-hmm.
So to give us the picture of wholeness on earth, well, no. Anyone with a defect can't serve, because there are no defects. To give you the picture of no defects in heaven. Mm-hmm. Even when we at funerals we say the person that dies or something, they don't have that ailment. They're whole again, and they're complete again. So that not necessarily anything that's sinful about having one arm or one leg, but it's a picture of not being complete or whole.
That's a good point.
So and you would get the impression that, well, my goodness, will we be whole, and can we see a picture of wholeness in heaven? Mm-hmm. Well, yes, we can. We see it through the priestly office. That's
a very good point. Yeah. That's a good point.
So that's all I have for now.
Well, that's a good
Well, that's
point.
something that's coming.
I think that's a good point.
Okay.
Did you want to say anything, Barry? Yeah. That was a good point, John. I thought that was that God is trying to through this laying out this priesthood and the tabernacle, what's to be in there, that He's given us a picture of what heaven is like, and it is a complete place, no defects. Not that He has anything against people who have the defects here, but He is trying to give a picture, and that was very good, John. I think that's very, very good. One thing I put on my notes was that, again, I was looking at the defect, said no man who has a defect may serve, and all of this prohibition against that, but I didn't come up with that. I mean, yours is good. It's not that it's anything against it, but God is trying to present a picture. As I was reading in verse 31, it kind of struck me because it's going to play into the last part of the Parsha. And God gives a commandment. He said, "You shall faithfully observe my commandments. I am the Lord. You shall not profane my holy name, that I may be sanctified in the midst of the Israelite people. I, the Lord, who sanctify you, I brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I, the Lord." So I think that's a very important commandment here, because it's going to explain a lot of things about the last part of the Parsha. So let's keep that in mind, that particular verse 31. Okay, we're going to take a small break here, and then I will read the festival calendar, and that we could just feast off of that for a long time. But I think there's a big point that God is making by having this in this particular section here. So let's take a small break, and then we'll get back to that.
Yeah, in your Bible, what is chapter 5? How does it read?
Chapter 5.
Yeah, not chapter 5. Chapter 21, verse 5.
Because they shall not make boldness upon their head, neither shall they shave off the corners of their beard, nor make any cutting in their flesh.
It stops there. Oh, okay. Some others have different contexts. There's been maybe I should find out the version they're using. But some folks will use that as a command not to do tattoos. But actually, technically, this is talking about the priest, that the priest shouldn't get tattoos, but this was kind of a pagan practice. This version doesn't give you the context isn't that good. Oh, I'm sorry. The context is right at the top in the first verse. And the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the children." I'm sorry. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, none shall defile himself for the dead among his people." So when a person dies, and it goes on with the exceptions and other things here. So when a person dies, no, you can't cut yourself. That's because that's what the pagan folks do.
Well, I think he means that also it's just a prohibition. It seemed like the pagan folks was doing a lot of stuff, so I think it was.
They cut. Even when Elijah was taunting them, and they cut themselves and all other stuff like that. So cutting is not, cutting is common for a common practice in pagan religion.
Right, so it's a prohibition that
Yeah.
or these are specifically related to the priest, but as we see, I think throughout the Torah that the prohibition is for all
Everyone
Israel. Yes, that it's for all of Israel. Because, but particularly for the priests, and that I guess he's reiterating that no, because maybe the priests in the pagan temples were doing all of this. I'm sure they would.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever God is saying don't do, I'm sure they were doing it in the pagan temple. So,
Right, but part of it is that it's not a prohibition against tattoos if you're not doing it for the dead.
well, I would think so. No, that it's something in the Torah. I wouldn't say that God has given permission for all the rest of Israel to get a tattoo. I don't think so.
No, I'm not saying giving them permission to do a tattoo, but there's probably nothing particularly wrong with getting a tattoo.
I say it is.
You said it?
Yes.
Oh.
If you read,
Under any circumstance.
right. Oh
any
yes,
context.
yes. Of cutting the body, and because even today in some pagan cultures, when someone dies, they do cut themselves.
Right, okay. But this is outside, that's it had nothing to do with a death.
I still say I don't know. It's a prohibition against mutilating yourself, and we can find it in Torah. For next week we'll come back with it. But I really think you'll find it not just for the priests, that for all Israel, God doesn't want any self mutilation, especially when it comes to worshiping Him, because that's what they did in the pagan.
Okay, I understand, but we're talking, there's a context inside of a religious practice and a context outside of a religious practice.
Well, we're talking about the Torah. The Torah. I mean, there's nothing outside of the Torah. In terms of what God is trying to achieve. Yes, there's a pagan stuff, but maybe I don't understand what you're saying.
Oh yeah, you said nothing outside of Torah, but Torah doesn't address driving a car.
No. Well, maybe it does. In terms of what God is trying to get them to do, I think you will find that yes, there's a prohibition against mutilating yourself or marking up your skin.
Okay, well, could be, but you can't use this passage.
No, because it's specifically toward the priest.
Okay.
But I say that if we went through the Torah, we'd find it directed at Israel. No, don't self-mutilate. No marking your skin as the pagans do. I dare say that it is
for the
no in on just general purpose.
Do not cut yourself.
You cut don't cut yourself.
Okay. Well, that's it.
Okay, hold on. We're gonna go on. Got to go into the next part. Can you hold that thought?
No, well, I guess my the thinking was we don't serve God the same way the pagan serves their God.
No.
Right, we're agreeing on that.
Yeah, and God is throughout the Torah. God is making a distinction between the way the pagans worship their God and the way He wants to be worshipped. And we could make it just real easy. Whatever they were doing with the pagans, God said, "No, I don't want that." Completely opposite. Because and we've concluded a lot of times in pagan temples, well, probably most times in pagan temple, there was a lot of sexual debauchery.
Yeah.
And God has to address that and said, no, I don't want that occurring in my temple. I want the priests to be covered. I don't want them to be showing themselves. There is no such thing as a temple prostitute in the temple, the Mishkan in Israel. There is no such thing as a temple prostitute. In paganism, there's such thing as a temple prostitute.
Yeah.
So, again, completely different from what God is trying to reiterate. To a place, like you said, He's trying to show a holy place. Because in heaven, and there ain't no body doing all this kind of nasty stuff. No marked bodies, because there's no defect. And God is trying to show that. So,
Okay.
all right, we're going to go into the second part, which is, I think, which, and it's a, and I'm, when I get to the part that I think most people miss, most Christians miss, I'm going to reiterate it again. But the next part is called the festival calendar, Leviticus 23, verses 1 through 44. And it starts out saying, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, these are my fixed times, the fixed times of the Lord, which you shall proclaim as sacred occasions. And I'm going to stop right here and reiterate this, because most people, when they talk about the festival calendar, they talk about the Jewish holidays. Well, God kind of clears this up when he again says, I'm going to read the verse. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, these are my fixed times, the fixed times of the Lord, which you shall proclaim as sacred occasion. On 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day there shall be a Sabbath of the complete rest, a sacred occasion. You shall do no work. It shall be a Sabbath of the Lord throughout your settlements. These are the set times of the Lord, the sacred occasions, which you shall celebrate each at its appointed time. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at twilight there should be a Passover offering to the Lord. And on the 15th day of that month, the Lord's feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days. The first day shall be for you a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. 7 days you shall make offerings by fire to the Lord. The seventh day shall be a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupation. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you enter the land which I am giving to you, and you reap its harvest, you shall bring the first sheaf of your harvest to the priest. He shall wave the sheaf before the Lord for acceptance in your behalf. The priest shall wave it on the day after the Sabbath. On the day that you wave the sheaf, you shall offer as a burnt offering to the Lord a lamb of the first year without blemish. The meal offering with it shall be 2/10 of a measure of choice flour, with oil mixed in, an offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Lord, and the libation with it shall be of wine, a quarter of a hin, until the very day, until you have brought the offering of your God. You shall eat no bread, or parched grain, or fresh ears. It is a law for all time throughout the ages in your settlements. And from the day in which you bring the sheaf of wave offering, the day after the Sabbath, you shall count off 7 weeks. They must be complete. You must count until the day after the 7th week, 50 days. Then you shall bring an offering of new grain to the Lord. You shall bring from your settlements 2 loaves of bread as a wave offering. Each shall be made of 2/10 of a measure of choice flour, baked after leavening, as first fruits to the Lord. With the bread you shall present as burnt offerings to the Lord 7 yearlings lambs without blemish, 1 bull of the herd, 2 rams with their meal offering and libations, an offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Lord. You shall also offer 1 he-goat as a sin offering, and 2 yearling lambs as a sacrifice of well-being. The priest shall wave these, the 2 lambs, together with the bread of the first fruits of the wave offering before the Lord. They shall be holy to the Lord for the priest. On that same day you shall hold a celebration. It shall be a sacred occasion for you. You shall not work at your occupations. This is a law for all time in your settlements throughout the ages. And when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I, the Lord, am your God. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people thus. In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall observe a complete rest, a sacred occasion, commemorated with loud blast. You shall not work at your occupations, and you shall bring an offering by fire to the Lord. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, mark the 10th day of this 7th month. It's the day of atonement. It shall be a sacred occasion for you, And you shall practice self-denial, and you shall bring an offering by fire to the Lord. You shall do no work throughout that day, for it is a day of atonement on which expiation is made on your behalf before the Lord your God. Indeed, any person who does not practice self-denial throughout that day shall be cut off from his kin. Whoever does any work throughout that day, I will cause that person to perish from among his people. Do no work, whatever it is, a law for all time, throughout the ages in your settlements. It shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for you, and you shall practice self-denial on the 9th day of the month or evening. From evening to the evening you shall observe this your Sabbath. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Say to the Israelite people, on the 15th day of the 7th month there shall be the feast of booths to the Lord, to last 7 days. The first day shall be a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. 7 days you shall bring offerings by fire to the Lord. On the 8th day you shall observe a sacred occasion and bring an offering by fire to the Lord. It is a solemn gathering. You shall not work at your occupations. These are the set times of the Lord, which you shall celebrate as sacred occasions, bringing offerings by fire to the Lord, burnt offering, meal offerings, sacrifices, and libations, on each day what is proper to it. Apart from the Sabbaths of the Lord, apart from your gifts, and from all your votive offering, and from all your freewill offerings that you give to the Lord. Mark on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered, Mark on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered the yield of your land, you shall observe the festival of the Lord, to last 7 days, a complete rest on the first day, and a complete rest on the 8th. On the first day you shall take the product of hadar trees, branches of palm trees, boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. You shall observe it as a festival of the Lord for 7 days in the year, and you shall observe it in the 7th month as a law for all time throughout the ages. You shall live in booths 7 days. All citizens in Israel shall live in booths, in order that future generations may know that I made the Israelite people live in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I, the Lord your God. So Moses declared to the Israelites the set times of the Lord. And this is probably one of the, I like the way this reads in here, because there's no doubt God outlines that these are his festivals and these are important. And it's a reason why we should be celebrating these too, because again, he gave them to Israel, but they are God's. And therefore, we are allowed to celebrate them also. Matter of fact, not allowed, because they are God. If it's good for Israel, it's good for us too. And so that's why and it's a perfect outline of what the festivals are, starting from Passover to the Feast of Booths of Sukkot, as it's called. So in my first, one of my first comments, I said, these are my fixed times. This is what God says. And he goes through the litany of the holidays of his fixed times, not holidays, of his Sabbaths. The 7th day Sabbath. The first month, 14th day Passover. 15th day starts the unleavened bread. The 7th week, 50 days, Christianity calls it Pentecost. Israelites call it Shavuot, meaning weeks, feast of weeks. The 7th month, the Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah, or the New Year. The 10th day of the 7th month, Yom Kippur. The 15th day starts of the 7th month starts the Feast of Booths. And just a note right here, Lag BaOmer, which is since Passover, it's been we're halfway to the Feast of Weeks. So that means it's been about 25 days since Passover or Feast of Unleavened Bread, and that's the middle of that is on Sunday. And in Israel, they have many customs that they observe. They light bonfires. They go and visit the graves of some of the saints who died. Also, we had a really good Hebrew class, and my Hebrew teacher was telling us a lot of things that happened. One of the heroes of Israel's rebellion against Rome, Bar Kokhba, he um, rebelled against Rome. A lot of people died. And Rabbi Akiva, you may have heard that during Passover, we talk about Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, the Romans forbid the Jews to study Torah. Now, that's saying a lot. Throughout the Jewish history, whenever there's persecution against the Jews, the persecuting party forbids them to study from Torah. Now, how crazy is that? How demonic is that you would forbid a people to study from a book, from the Torah specifically? And that's what happened with a lot of Jews. And so when that happened with Rabbi Akiva, they rose up against the Romans and they said, no, we're not going to obey your edict. We're going to study. And a lot of his students were killed because of this. We can probably look right now, just in common in what's happening to us, where we're not allowed to study the Bible. The Bible's been taken out of the school. When I was a little girl, they had the Bible lady come. We talked about the Bible, all from the Old Testament to the New. If you try to get the Bible lady in the school now, I wonder, could you get the Bible lady? And everybody went to hear the Bible lady talk about the Bible stories. So that's where we are now, where we are forbidden to study or even bring out the Bible, the Torah. I read a article this week about a young man, and I've forgotten where it is, where he was in class attending a university, and he would read his Bible before class, and the instructor said to him, I prefer you not read your Bible before class. And I said, now what the heck is this? Are we coming to that where I can't, as a free person in the United States, I can't read my Bible anytime I want to, as long as I'm not disruptive? And he wasn't. He was just reading his Bible. So, again, I think we're in those times where, as with the Jews, they are forbidden to study Torah, forbidden to study God's laws. But if we want to, if I could just say one more thing out of this particular passage, it would behoove all of us to study it again, because God says, these are my times, my fixed times. And you didn't hear in any of this, you didn't hear the word Christmas, although, anyway, I just think you didn't hear the word Christmas, and you didn't hear Easter, you didn't hear that. These times that God has fixed right here is what you hear about. And that we need to study more to find out what they are. Okay, I'll open it up. I said a lot.
Well, I think these are straightforward holidays or festivals that were indicated, God festivals that were given to Moses for the children of Israel to acknowledge. And some of it was an acknowledge of deliverance from slavery in Egypt. I think the idea of a Sabbath here, at least in this particular chapter, did not relate it to a Sabbath that related to creation, but a Sabbath that was related to freedom. So this isn't from the Genesis account, but this is from the account of the Exodus out of Egypt. The other comment that I made is when it says the Sabbath you do not do any work. One commentator says you do not do any assigned duties that you would normally regularly do. One time Jesus was eating corn plucking corn. His disciples were plucking and eating corn on the Sabbath day. That upset a lot of folks, and Jesus says, if your cow fell in a ditch, wouldn't you, or even your neighbor's cow fell in a ditch, wouldn't you help him pull him out of the ditch? So it's okay to do good on the Sabbath day, but it's just your normal, everyday assigned task that you don't do. And that this Sabbath day originated with Israel, not with any other group of people. But that's all I have for that one.
Well, I like to always bring up but you say in your prayers a lot when you talk about that we are free. That when Israel was slaves, I don't think they had a day off. I probably tend to think you're going to work as much as the master wants you to work.
The master said, do this, you did it.
You're going to be working. But God is saying, you're free. And what indicates you're free is, I have a day set aside that I don't want you to do your normal, usual thing. You do not do it. Matter of fact, even the food you eat, I want you to gather enough for 2 days on the 6th day so that you don't have to go out and gather food or prepare food. Because this is a special day. And as you always said, we're free. If we weren't free now, then we'd be doing the same old thing. If we were slaves in Egypt, we'd be working on the pyramids or whatever. But God said, no, you're free now. So you hollow this day out. Don't do your usual activities. Don't go to make a living. Matter of fact, the stuff you gather on the 6th day, it's going to be a miracle because it's going to last. Especially when we're talking about the manna, it's going to last and it's not going to go rancid on the 7th day. That's how special this day is. So, I'm in love with God's fixed times. And I'm in love with him because he gave them for a reason and a purpose. And I conclude the reason and the purpose is to draw attention to the greatest gift that he was going to give the world. And that's the Messiah of Israel, the Messiah. And that this is just a pattern of what was going to happen, that he was going to be crucified. It starts backwards with, we could start in the fall festivals where he comes in tabernacles, or comes and is born, and then over to Passover when he dies for our sin. So.
When did he die?
Passover.
Verse 5, chapter 23.
Oh, verse 5.
It kind of hit me. It says, on the 14th day of the first month at twilight is the Lord's Passover.
Oh, yes.
So when did Christ die? Well, let's say Passover. But the part that struck me, they wanted to take him down before sundown.
Before the sundown, yes.
Yeah. So the Lord's
Yes.
Passover was at twilight.
Yes, before sundown.
Yeah, almost exactly.
And I've had rabbis teach that he was resurrected at twilight, 3 days later. At the twilight.
Yeah.
That's when he was resurrected.
So essentially he pretty much died at twilight
and resurrected at twilight. That there was this small little time in this whatever. And again,
I didn't think that. I know when he died during the day, I'm thinking, well, I don't know, he died, at 5 o'clock or something like that, but and the sun was still up. But no, the sun was getting ready to go down.
It was getting ready to go down.
No, we got to get these people off these crosses.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's forbidden in Torah to leave them up.
Right.
And they said they had to get them down before then, because it's forbidden in Torah to do that. They couldn't.
Right.
And
so
it
the sun couldn't have gone down, so it was at twilight.
Yes, they had to get him out and get him. And one of the teachings is they got him down, and they didn't have time, as is a custom when the burial, they put spices around the body. Yeah. They didn't have time to do that. That's why the women went
3 days
after the 3 days, because it was the beginning of the Passover. Then it was a Saturday Sabbath, and they couldn't go because it was a holiday, so they had to wait for 3 days in order to go and then put the spices on the body. They hurriedly buried him. They just put him in the tomb because it was that close to Passover. They had just enough time to wrap him up and stick him in that tomb, and that's it. And so the women were going to put spices on the body.
Well, even God gave the time for his sacrifice.
Yes.
And when it would happen.
Yes.
Which I think sometimes the people who folks may have thought were Messiah. Well, when did they die? Was it during Passover, and was it at twilight? That's when the Lord's sacrifice was offered. At twilight at Passover.
At Passover.
Not at any time.
No. At twilight, exactly. And we go a step further, during God's fixed time. God fixed the time.
Yeah, that would be Passover.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his fixed time, he fixed it. He fixed the time, and he didn't fix it at Easter, or he fixed it at, and it's merely a rehearsal, because we need rehearsal, and this is a rehearsal for when the Messiah was going to come and he was going to die, and this is it. This is what happened right here.
Interesting. Okay.
And God is never caught off guard. God planned for this. God had planned for the Messiah to die, for his death and his resurrection. It's planned. When he laid out the universe, he planned it. He didn't just throw stuff out there. He had a plan. It is very well planned, down to the minutest detail. He planned it. So we'll go on to the next part, which is very short. And again, remember verse 30, 21, 34. Let me. 31. Where God says again, "You shall not profane my holy name, that I may be sanctified." And this is oil, bread, and the blasphemer. And it's Leviticus 24, verse 1 through 23. And I found it, when I was reading it, it brought some things to mind. And I'll bring them out when I get there. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Command the Israelite people to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lighting, to maintain lights regularly. Aaron shall set them up in the tent of the meeting, outside the curtain of the pact, from evening to morning before the Lord regularly. It is a law for all time throughout the ages. He shall set up the lamps on the pure lampstand before the Lord to burn regularly. You shall take choice flour and bake of it 12 loaves, 2/10 of a measure for each loaf. Place them on the pure table before the Lord in 2 rows, 6 to a row. With each row you shall place pure frankincense, which is to be a token offering for the bread, as an offering by fire to the Lord. He shall arrange them before the Lord regularly every Sabbath day, as it is a commitment for all time on the part of the Israelites. They shall belong to Aaron and his sons, who shall eat them in the sacred precinct, for they are his at most holy times, as most holy things from the Lord's offering by fire, a due for all time. They came out among the Israelites, one whose mother was Israelite and whose father was Egyptian. And a fight broke out in the camp between that half Israelite and a certain Israelite. The son of the Israelite woman pronounced the name in blasphemy, and he brought to Moses, now his mother's name was Shlomit, daughter of Dibri, of the tribe of Dan, and he was placed in custody until the decision of the Lord shall be made clear to them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the blasphemer outside the camp, and let all who were within hearing lay their hands upon his head, and let the whole community stone him. And to the Israelite people speak thus: anyone who blasphemes his God shall bear his guilt. If he also pronounces the name Lord, he shall be put to death. The whole community shall stone him, stranger or citizen. If he has thus pronounced the name, he shall be put to death. If a man kills any human being, he shall be put to death. One who kills a beast shall make restitution for it, life for life. If anyone maims his fellow as he has done, so shall he be done to him. So shall it be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The injury he inflicted on another shall be inflicted on him. He who kills a beast shall make restitution for it, but he who kills a human being shall be put to death. You shall have one standard for stranger and citizens alike, for I, the Lord, am your God." Moses thus spoke to the Israelites, and they took the blasphemer outside the camp and pelted him with stones. The Israelites did as the Lord had commanded Moses. And what I want to draw particular attention to is again where this young man pronounced the name of God Adonai in blasphemy, and I'm trying to, as we trying to look up and see if it's the Yud Hey Vav Hey that he tried to pronounce. Yes. I believe it was the Yud Hey Vav Hey. But what I was kind of struck me, there are a lot of groups out there now, and I'm not. I'm just not trying to degrade them. That's not it. But they are out there trying. They want to know how to pronounce the name of God, and some of them have even said, "Well, this is how God's name is pronounced," and they're very, very adamant about pronouncing the name of God. And it would be wonderful to know how they exactly pronounce the Yud Hey Vav Hey. Wonderful in the sense that if you know someone's name, you know the essence of the person. But I still think it's a mistake to think that we mere mortals need to know the exact essence of God. I guess that's one reason I bring this up, because a lot of the pronunciations they're using, it's not proper Hebrew, and they're not sure. The rabbis aren't sure of how the Yud Hey Vav Hey is pronounced. Anyway, in English people say Jehovah, but there's no J in Hebrew. It's the Yud that's goes in place of the J, and it's not yeah. So anyway, that kind of struck me. Again, that God said before that His name is holy, and you don't blaspheme His name by trying to pronounce it. And I'm sure this is probably much deeper, because I mean, for Him to know the name, and but anyway, that's why I thought this was such a neat passage, because God had outlined that He didn't want His name blasphemed. That we should treat His name as holy, because like when you're reading in Hebrew, a lot of the Jewish people, instead of trying to pronounce the Yud Hey Vav Hey, they'll say Adonai, which means you'll know when they say Adonai that it's the Yud Hey Vav Hey, the unutterable name of God, as most people call it. So anyway, that's the point I want to make. Any comments?
Well, one commentator thought there are a number of different ways of pronouncing God's name. Well, not His name, but or even referring to God's name. Sometimes the Jews will, instead of using the actual name, will use Lord, so they don't blaspheme His name. But even if you use a substitute name, you're still blaspheming the name of God, is what this commentator thinks. And I was looking for the various names here. It's just saying that whoever curses his God, that's one thing he used there. And also it said blaspheme His name. Well, give me a minute here. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it said the Son blasphemed the name of the Lord. And another place, the name of the Lord, it says, in verse 15 it says, whoever curses his God. So it's not simply just getting the name right. Even if you blaspheme the Lord, there's still a problem with it, even if you use a substitute name, I think.
Oh yeah, I have no doubt that if you use a substitute. But I guess in this particular instance, in the Hebrew, they're talking about the Yud Hey Vav Hey, which was sacred. What I like to bring out, and I think we talked about it, God has many names or many attributes.
Mm-hmm.
If you go, I'll name one of when when Abraham went to sacrifice Isaac, and the angel stopped him, and it said right here they named that place Adonai A lot of people say, oh goodness, what did a lot of people say? Oh, the Lord will provide. But no, that's not it. He said the Lord will see. Adonai Yireh. He will see, which means, in essence, if he sees that you're in need, he will provide. So,
You sure? I thought El Roy was the Lord will see.
he will Yireh. Yireh is to see. He will see. That was the name. That's the name
That place.
yes, that's the name they gave him at that place because that was his attribute. And when Moses was going to the Israel in Egypt, and he said to God, "Who shall I say sent me?" And God says, the translation is, "I am that I am," but the Hebrew it says, "I will be that I will be." It's the future, and that's one of his attributes, and that's another name. In Isaiah, I think they name all the names for the Messiah, and one of them is Sar Shalom, the Prince of Peace. He has many attributes, but I think here they're dealing not necessarily with the attribute; they're actually dealing with his unutterable name. But God Himself has, which I love, and I think many people get mixed up. One name I love, and I've forgotten where it's taken from. He's called Ha-Makom. Makom in Hebrew is place. He's the place. And it's like you said, he's making a place where he is, where he is, it's a special place because we can't just go there in our own sinful state. We have to have a covering. But they call him Ha-Makom, the place. So he has many attributes. Many attributes. But I think a lot of people, like now who are trying to find his name to say it, are into witchcraft. And they figure if they know his name, the name, that they can say it and get anything they want from God. That's what I believe this is referring to. And I think a lot of people who are trying to pronounce his name, again, it's witchcraft because he has you don't have to know this particular name. You can, I been in a situation where you in so much pain, the only thing you can say is Jesus. He heard that, he understands that. And if you could say Lord, say Lord, help me. That's it. You don't have to know this name, but I think it is manipulation. People wanting to manipulate God by knowing, because he figures if I meet you on the street and I say to you, hey, how you doing? But if I say, Barry, how you doing? That gets your attention. Or hi, John, how you doing? You pay attention. But I believe, again, like I said, people wanted to know his name. And then it's a form of blasphemy, form of witchcraft is what it is. Thinking you can manipulate God by knowing his name, by thinking it's a secret thing just because you know his name, that he's obligated to do what you want him to do. And it's a mistake to believe it. Anything else? I think this has been a good. Anything else?
Not for me.
Well, I think this has been a most important lesson simply because of the fact that it outlined God's appointed times. That they're not just for Israel, they're God's. And it's a mistake or misnomer to say that they're Jewish holidays. Well, yes, we can say they're Jewish holidays, but God gave them to the Jews. So it's something we should pay attention to and study. Okay? All right, for next week, the Parsha is, if I could see, key. So that much. I don't know why I try to look at my calendar. Emor, and then I looked at the wrong page. Emor, okay, is
on the mountain.
Bahar. Thanks, Bear, because I was looking at the next week. No, I want to look at the next week. I just couldn't see. Okay, it's May. And it'll be what?
It's going to be Leviticus 25.
Okay.
1 through 27.
Why am I looking at that wrong then? Okay. Bahar.
A couple more chapters here.
Yeah. I mean, why is this looking so crazy? Emor. Oh, I see. I think this thing is. Oh, okay. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Bro. It's okay. So it's two parshas next week. Okay. So it's Leviticus starting at 25, and it's this is I was looking at the wrong thing. Looking at the Adonai Moshe Mount Sinai. You're right. The Mount Sinai, and so the first one is. Vayedave Adonai El Moshe Bahar Sinai Lemor. The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. And again, it started at Leviticus 25th chapter, first verse. And it goes through 27th chapter.
Through the 30th,
And then it,
37, 34.
okay. And then it's, the next one is Bahakti. Bechukotai.
That's in mine.
And that starts, tell me where that is, Bear. Leviticus
34.
34,
And then
chapter,
this is 34.
34,
It's
chapter.
verse. It's only 27 chapters here.
Okay, okay. 27. Okay, 26. Okay, it's 26 something. And it says, Bechutai, let me see, where is that? If you follow my laws, in Bechutai, Bechutai telchu le'et matzoti tishmaru ve'asitam otam. If you follow my laws and faithfully observe my commandments, I will grant your rains and seasons so that the earth shall yield its produce. And that, does that end, Bechutai goes to the 27th. And so that ends it to the end of Leviticus, the 27th. So there are two parshot. So from where we stop here to the end of Leviticus. To John.
Okay, but it's only 3 chapters.
Oh, it's only 3 chapters. Okay.
They have it laid out there.
Okay, so Leviticus 20, 27. Yeah. So, okay. Thanks, Barry. So, so it's going to play out there and going to probably give us more laws and things like that. And so very good. We did a good job. We just thank the Lord that He gives us an opportunity to meet. And in 2 weeks it's gonna be interesting. We'll see, because we're gonna have a big crowd, and we'll see if they participate with us. If they don't, we just have our own thing together. We've invited them to stay because we have the reunion, and we've invited people to stay and have Bible study with us, and we'll see if they do. But if not, we're still gonna do it because we gotta record it. So so it'll be interesting. I was gonna print out a song, but let me think of one. Unless somebody got one that you like one. John, can you think of one?
Oh gosh, I can't think of one offhand.
Gary, can you think of one?
Just a little mine? Just a little mine?
Oh, this little Bible.
Let me see if I. Okay, this little light of mine. This little light of mine.
Yeah.
Let's see if I remember words, Barry. Listen. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I know. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Very good, dear. That was a good choice. We let it shine and we thank the Lord, and God is He's doing so much. And we just thank Him, and we just pray that He will use us. He will use this light within us, that He regenerates every Shabbat. That He put something in us, that because we've stopped and we said, Lord, we stop and we wait for You. Just, Lord, just rejuvenate us. Put back in what the week has taken out. And just give us the strength to serve You, Lord, and to let this light shine. What a good song. What a good way to end the Shabbat meal. We have reaffirmed His Sabbath, and we go on. And so Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, have a good week, and may God continue to bless and keep everybody. Amen. Amen. Thank you for joining us for this Shabbat meal and Shabbat table talk. We hope you enjoy your week, Shavua Tov, and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.